10 largest castles in the world. Welcome to our channel. Today we list out top 10 largest castles in the world. So before we go, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. The word castle is synonymous with images of thick walls, fortified towers, hilltop settings, and fairy tales. Most castles were built during the Middle Ages as residences and fortified cities by the nobility and royalty. Usually, they cover an extensive area because of their walls, moats, and fortifications. While most of the largest castles in the world are in Europe, there are many others scattered throughout the world. Our list of the 10 largest castles in the world brings you a deeper insight into these grand structures that hold the title of being the largest castle in the world. Here is the list of 10 largest castles in the world. Number 1. Neuschwanstein Castle, Germany. The striking Neuschwanstein Castle overlooks the village of Hohensalzburg in southwest Bavaria. Ranking as one of the biggest castles in the world, it spreads out over 6,000 square meters. Ludwig II of Bavaria commissioned a castle in honor of music composer, Richard Wagner. Ludwig paid for it out of his own pocket. Initially named New Hohensalzburg Castle, the name changed to Neuschwanstein Castle after his death in 1886. Inspired by the operas of Richard Wagner and two other palaces, Ludwig incorporated theater themes into this castle. During the construction of the palace, the king insisted on seeing every draft before finalizing anything. His role in overseeing the building process resulted in a place more of his own design despite architect Edward Riedel landing the job. Labeled as kitsch by critics at the time, today, people hold it in high regard. Number 2. Cite de Carcassonne, France. Cite de Carcassonne is an imposing medieval citadel in the French city of Carcassonne. The historic landmark attracts thousands of visitors. Resembling a fairy tale castle with its spiky turrets and zigzag battlements, this UNESCO World Heritage Site stood its ground for over 2 millennia. Strategically located on a hilltop and laid out in a concentric pattern, the castle gets protection from double ramparts and 52 defensive towers. The Romans and Gauls settled here early on and the Visigoths followed. Traces of the Visigoths' influence on the castle still remain. Although the restoration work received criticism during Viollet-le-Duc's lifetime as he used slate instead of terracotta tiles, it is still the work of genius. Number 3. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. No visit to Edinburgh is complete without a visit to this extensive castle which sits grandly atop Castle Rock, the plug of an extinct volcano. This huge rock rises to a height of 130 meters above sea level. One of the biggest castles in the world, surrounded by rocky cliffs, the place looks quite impenetrable. The first documented mention of a castle on Castle Rock appeared in an account by John Fordun in the 11th century. In the 12th century, King David I spent a lot of his time in Edinburgh. By the end of the 12th century, Edinburgh Castle acquired the status of being the main repository of Scotland's official state papers. A seesaw of fortunes followed during the 13th and early 14th centuries, when the castle briefly passed into the hands of the English. Number 4. Citadel of Aleppo, Syria. Considered the largest castle in the world, the Citadel of Aleppo lies in northern Syria. The hill on which the castle stands has been in use as far back as the 3rd millennium BC. It's also purportedly the place where the prophet Abraham grazed his sheep. Most of what remains of the citadel today are attributed to the Ayyubid period. The city emerged as a fortified acropolis under the reign of Seleucus I Nicator, an infantry general in Alexander the Great's army. It later passed into the hands of the Romans. Muslim troops eventually captured it in the 7th century. However, not much of either the Roman or Muslim period is visible in the citadel. Number 5. Himeji Castle, Japan. It's easy to see why this Japanese castle is listed as one of the largest in the world. Comprising 83 buildings that cover an extensive 265 acres, the Himeji Castle is not only a national treasure but also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's the largest and best preserved samurai fortification in Japan, the finest surviving example of prototypical Japanese castle architecture. Also popularly referred to as White Heron Castle because of its resemblance to a bird taking flight, Himeji Castle's foundation dates back to 1333. A fort initially occupied the site where the castle now stands. However, it was dismantled to make way for the castle in 1346. 2 centuries later, the castle's significant remodeling resulted in the addition of a 3-story castle keep. Number 6. Buda Castle, Hungary. On the southern tip of Castle Hill in Budapest, is the massive Buda Castle. The touristic area of Varnaged surrounds it. A great way of finding out more about this impressive structure is by taking a tour down the medieval streets of Buda Castle. The present structure dates back to the 18th century. Credit for the first royal residence on Castle Hill goes to the 13th century King Bela IV, of Hungary. However, no trace of this castle remains. The foundations of the current palace date back to 1356 when King Laius built a Romanesque-style castle. 4 decades later, a grander Gothic-style palace replaced it as the grandest in Europe at the time. The new palace did not stand for long though, as it was once again taken down and replaced by a Renaissance palace. Number 7. Spiš Castle, Slovakia. Another Hungarian castle that occupies an impressive 49,485 square meters is the Spiš Castle in Slovakia, considered to be one of the biggest medieval castles in Central Europe. The bulwarks and thick defensive walls date back to the 12th century as protection for the Hungarian kings. It was also the principal center of governance of the Kingdom of Hungary. Through the centuries, the castle passed down to various powerful families until it passed to the state of Czechoslovakia in 1945. The castle collapsed in the 12th century, but by the second half of the 13th century, a new Romanesque stone castle with fortifications replaced it. A 2-story Romanesque palace and a 3-nave Romanesque Gothic basilica were also part of the new complex. Number 8. Hohensalzburg Castle, Austria. Salzburg's iconic castle is a real eye-catcher, sitting high above the city on Festungsberg Hill. With a total area of 54,523 square meters, the castle is one of the biggest castles in the world. The imposing structure had a humble beginning as a bailey with a wooden wall in 1077 when Archbishop Gebhard von Helfenstein commissioned it. When Helfenstein and Henry IV had a fallout, the castle became even bigger. Over the centuries, the fortress underwent greater expansions. Ring walls and towers became part of it in 1462 under Prince Archbishop Burkhard II von Weispreich. The succeeding Prince Archbishop, Leonhard von Koychuk, transformed the castle to its current state. He made more additions to the fortress between 1495 to 1519. Number 9. Windsor Castle, England. Considered to be the biggest castle in the world that's occupied, Windsor Castle makes up one of the 3 official residences of the Queen of England. Straddling an extensive area of 54,835 square meters, this vision of towers and battlements attracts thousands of visitors throughout the year. The castle has 3 parts: lower, middle, and upper wards. Visitors can take a free guided tour to familiarize themselves with the layout. Some of the areas remain off-limits, especially when the Queen is in residence. The royal standard flies from the round tower to indicate her presence. After the successful Norman invasion of England, William the Conqueror ordered the construction of an earth and timber fortress beside the Thames. Number 10. Prague Castle, Czech Republic. Although the Guinness Book of Records lists Prague Castle as the biggest castle in the world, the top spot in terms of the land area goes to another European castle. However, Prague's most popular attraction occupies a whopping area of 66,761 square meters, the size of over 7 football fields. The 9th century fairy tale-like fortress Century looks down on the city from its prime perch on the left bank of the Vltava River. Ever since its opening, the castle has been the seat of the Czech monarchs and the official residence of the head of state. There's a lot to see in the vicinity of the castle, and a good idea would be to go on a walking tour. Hopefully, you've enjoyed discovering all of these top 10 castles. Thanks for watching.